Okay, so welcome everybody to another edition of the PBEC Dialogue series. And this will be going out under our Value Prop subsidiary, which is a new brand that we've created just to go around the different APEC member states and also members and of PBEC who come with real tech-based solutions, which are really exciting, especially in some of the really social entrepreneur impactful investment segments. And we're joined today by Dr. Parag Agarwal, who's recently become a PBEC member himself. So we're very happy to have him on the show today. And I'm going to be talking to Dr. Parag about his JanaJal product and company that he founded in India. And it's really having some exciting times, despite obviously the COVID pandemic. Life still goes on, business still goes on. And we're going to hear from Dr. Parag all about this exciting venture. And to give a bit of perspective on that, his company was recently awarded and a big program from the Water Ministry of India, one of the world's largest water schemes, over $5 billion worth of investment over 5 years to roll out safe water delivery across the country. So without further ado, I want to welcome you, Dr. Parag. Welcome to the PBEC online series.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mike. It's such a pleasure to be here.
And it's a really nice segue because in May, you don't know this yet, but we're going to be doing more of a live webinar all around water and waste utilities in Asia, inviting some of our other PBEC members and strategic partners like ADB Bank and AIIB Bank, who are two big investors and supporters of safe water utilization and management, certainly in a more carbon-friendly environment these days, carbon-neutral environment that we all have to attain to. So first of all, without going into all of that detail, I'd love to, and I think our listeners would love to hear about your quick synopsis of your own career path. How did you get into this segment? Obviously, you joined your family business at a very young age of 15, and then fast forwarding to 2021, where we just mentioned the exciting news of being awarded a very large project by the Indian government and the Water Ministry. So, Dr. Parag, can you just give us a quick sort of summary where from there to the humble beginning to today?
Well, thank you, Mike. It's such a pleasure and privilege to be part of PBEC and to be here today to talk to everyone, introduce myself. And I wish there was a way to summarize 33 years, maybe 36 years of a journey in 3 minutes. But yes, I'll try and quickly. It's been one hell of a journey, if I can say the least. Started off like every youngster, teenager would. There was always this fire in the belly, wanting to do something. Started showing up at my dad's place of work, his business. Obviously, no father allows their teenager son to try and impose his own rules. And very quickly, I realized that, while what he was doing was working for him, I just thought it should be done differently. And, there was nothing which was right versus wrong. I mean, it was all right, but it was just a different approach. And very quickly at the age of 18, I realized that the only way to save my relationship with my father was to not work with him. So
I know that feeling.
So that's exactly where, I've always been a very, somebody who walks the talk. If I feel something, I would like to back it. I would like to give myself a chance. And since the age of 18, I've been on my own. I've only been an entrepreneur. I've never known what it is to do anything else. I think I was just wired like that. And it's been a long journey, I keep saying, there isn't a sector that I don't understand. There isn't a sector I haven't worked with, right from mining to retail to fabric to IT. In fact, to the stock market before the IT came in. I delved very deeply into the stock markets, witnessed one of India's biggest bull runs in the early 90s, and then was witness to the collapse of the stock markets thereafter when the bubble burst. And so, all of that actually taught me a lot. It taught me, and today in hindsight, I'm able to join the dots much easier in terms of how uh, the stock markets taught me the art of hedging. Hedging, I mean, of course, in the markets you do it, you hedge as per your investments. You go long in some stocks, you go short in some stocks because you're bearish about some sectors, you're bullish about some sectors, and you're always in play with multiple sectors. And I think that's where the hard disk in the head got formatted to run multiple operating systems at the same time. So as I say, it's the iOS and the Android both sitting in on the same hard disk. So and that lesson came very early in life, and I almost believe that it was sheer providence that it happened because it kind of cast the mold of who I wanted to be, who I was keen to be. It helped me discover myself. And it also gave me very early in life exposure to multiple sectors at the same time through the prism of the stock market. So, understood what the core sector is, understood what the FMCG is, understood what BFSI is, understood what, how policies affect and impact sectors, how bad policies affect and impact sectors,
Mm.
how to correlate them in terms of actual execution, spoke to so many directors, founders, management teams, as part of the research that we would do then. And then that led me to, I went on, and in 1994, I was one of the first people in India to set up a 1 GB hard disk to offer email services, if you please. And that
Wow.
was that was the era where of 70 MB, 80 MB hard disks. And that was, having a 170 MB hard disk was a big deal. 286 machines,
Yeah.
the Intel had come in only in, the Intel chip, the Pentium inside, the Intel inside chip had come in only in 85, 95, 96. So, and that phase, I had a 1 GB hard disk, and I used to command the respect of MIS and EDP managers in the biggest corporates in India because they said this boy has vision. He's actually put money into a 1 GB hard disk. They would actually come to my office was like a tourism site. They would come to just see what it looks like. And so I belong to that vintage world, as I call it. And since then, it's been a long, arduous journey. I've only evangelized technologies. Those were the days nobody had heard of email back in India. They would actually joke at me and say, "Have you heard of mail? We've heard of female. What's email?" So some called it elephant mail. So, they would mock me, and I would tell people, there are two computers. You send a message from here. There is a cloud in the middle, and then it travels through the cloud and gets to the other side, and somebody can receive it and watch it. And you don't need to make expensive telephone calls to speak to your loved ones. And that's how the whole thing started. And enjoyed the technology space thoroughly. I never studied to qualify myself in technology, but I had this natural bent of mind to basically apply technology to real situations and offer solutions to that basically catered to specific needs. And I think so now, the stock markets really helped format my own hard disk in the head. And that's where, it's been a journey since then, moved on, cut to 2021. Here we are today. Of course, before 2021, I'd like to talk about 2008, which is when I started looking at water
Yeah.
as a major problem. Now, of course, it was too much of a 40,000 foot approach or assessment of the water space. Got into water management, and as I descended deeper into it and kind of deep dived into the entire space, I understood in about 2-3 years that water management projects are very sexy, they're very glamorous, they're all big ticket long-term projects, but it requires tremendous amount of stability and consistency in the people and policy, both on the government side, on the
Yeah.
stakeholders side. And that is always a challenge, often a challenge, especially in developing countries, where that can almost turn on its head every time
Mm.
the government changes.
Yeah.
So at the same time, understood the gap between in the demand and supply for drinking water. Saw that bottled water, which was the privilege of the rich or the affluent or the blessed ones, was 1 liter of drinking water cost 20 Indian rupees at that point in time. And the next best option was free, but free was contaminated. So the problem, so I, the intrigue of why is it that there is no other option between free and 20 rupees. 20 rupees is incidentally about 23 US cents um, per liter. And I thought that was frightfully expensive. It really needs to be slide down because there was a lot of unnecessary cost. And then how can water become become more affordable? How can water become more accessible? Why should it be confined to only the select few who can afford it? And who can and that's where the entire the motivation or the inspiration to create a janajal. Jana, incidentally, in Hindi, jana means people, jal means water. So basically the name, as the name suggests, in Hindi, which is India's national language, is this is water for people. And the intention was water for people. How do we make safe water for all a reality? And the vision was to eliminate all the fat, eliminate all the unnecessary costs like the plastic itself, the container, the labeling, the brand ambassadors, the advertising, the reseller margins, distribution costs, logistics costs, eliminate all of that, come down to the bare bone product, which was water. That is what people wanted, and they had to pay for a whole lot of unnecessary costs to be able to secure that water. How can we basically make it more affordable? And that's where JanaJal was born, with a very technology agnostic approach. And again, what we did was what focus on the services piece. We decided to focus on the most difficult aspect of the water sector, which was managing, operating, and rendering services on water treatment plants, and not just selling water treatment plants as hardware and then maintaining them under AMC. So there's a fine line and classification there. I won't go too much into it, but we actually took on the difficult side of the business. But because that's where we saw there was room to play. That's where we saw that they needed some kind of intervention to be created, because there's a huge amount, billions of dollars of worth of infrastructure lying out there, which is absolutely going to waste. And that needed to be brought into play. So it's been a long, arduous journey, and very, very exciting. We're at the cusp of something we believe that can actually change the way the world will receive and drink its water. And
so I just want to bring up a couple of points there with you that you've raised, because first of all, I think it's interesting that you came into it 2008. I mean, we're in the midst of a financial global crisis in 2008. And I'd be interested just to hear a little bit more around that period. Was that part of the motivation to switch tactics or switch sectors, or and was water sector, that from your own vision at that time, were they also affected by the financial crisis? So there's maybe an opportunity to step in because they were lacking the ability in some ways to do the full suite of services going forward. And my second question, I guess, part of that is, when did JanaJal actually commence? I mean, was it in those second decade of the 2000s, sort of around 2012, 13, or was it immediate 2008?
No, so it was in 2008. And, that's a great question. 2008 was a global meltdown. It was a very difficult year for everyone, and as it was for us too. And, but during that period, I think it was one understanding was very clear, that the world will never survive without water. Whatever happens, I mean, starting with our bodies, which are 60, 70% water, going down to the whole planet where there's abundant water, but not much to drink. It's only getting more and more contaminated. Urbanization is was rapidly gaining on everyone. That also was a major cause for contamination. Natural resources being mined, mining was a serious challenge. I mean, I worked in countries like Indonesia in the coal mining sector as well. And that's where I understood how the mining activity can really contaminate the groundwater tables and the surface water bodies around the activities. So, so the understanding was that it was time to get into and focus on a sector that won't have an expiry date, that won't get disrupted. Nobody can, to be in the lighter way, none of us can ever hydrate ourselves through a download from the internet. So we'll always have to drink water. We'll always have to focus on water. And that's where the motivation came in. So like I said, initially it was water management, did the large projects, secured some of the country's biggest projects in conjunction and collaboration with international global companies who had the requisite expertise to render to manage those projects. But then in 2013 is when JanaJal was founded. And I actually relocated from my home city of Pune, which is in the western part of India, and I moved to the north, to the national capital of Delhi, simply because I thought that if something had to be done on a national level and an international level going forward, it was important to be stationed, be present in the national capital.
Yeah, close to the power.
Yes, be able to shape policy, be able to contribute at that policy level.
And that's quite common in Asia, right? I mean, I think for those people maybe listening from outside of Asia, I mean, people hear of Washington in America, and that's quite a lobbyist type environment around Washington for most large sectors. And it's no different in Asia, really. You come to Vietnam, you need to have a presence in Hanoi, similarly Philippines and Manila. So you do need to be where the power is in some ways if you are looking to make an impactful on scale contribution, especially around industries that rely on flexible policy and that supports the private sector investment as well. So just coming on, I mean, you've touched upon again, you have felt we're on the cusp, or you're on the cusp of something truly impactful in India in particular, starting up there. I was just wondering if you could give some insights about the foresight of that. Were you aware that the Indian government was going to be doing something like this back in 2013, or was it working towards, and then it just came along as part of the sort of business path? And then what were the first steps towards that, the whole ATM concept? You have over 750, probably more than that now, across India in terms of the ATM outlets. Is that a common business model for what you're delivering?
No, it's not, and it was not. When we actually conceived, when we incorporated the company, conceptualized the model, it was nothing but an idea. I mean, it was nothing that all that we visualized was there's got to be a way to deliver water to people in a technology agnostic manner. I mean, while reverse osmosis, RO, as it is commonly known, had become the order of the day and continues to be the order of the day as far as people are concerned. So if people want safe drinking water, they simply go out and install an RO plant. But that is actually doing a disservice to not only the cause of water, but also to your own selves, because you're actually, doing an overkill. You don't need to run municipal water through the reverse osmosis process, because then you're actually getting rid of all the essential nutrients from the water. And what I call very often as hollow water, is all you end up consuming. It's water in, water out. It's not hydrating your body. It's only quenching your thirst at that point in time, but it's doing nothing for your body. In fact, it's depriving your body and dehydrating you more and more. So that's again a very deep conversation. But so what we did was we created this kiosk model where we could connect the water source wherever and whatever it may be it a groundwater source, be it a bore well, be it a river, be it a municipal connection, be it a supply from a tanker, and then treat it within the kiosk itself, and then go out and dispense it to people as safe treated water. So that was a great way to eliminate all the unnecessary costs and bring it down straight to just a very bare and lean model. Having said that, there was no precedence of anything like this having been done before, especially in India. So we had to go out and do our own prototyping, our own piloting, testing, improvisations. We trashed so many versions of, in fact, the first set of kiosks we really imported were from Thailand, if you please, and we actually brought in those fiber boxes, that came in from there. Tried to work with them, but they weren't matching up to the needs of on ground. India is a big country. Population is
Yeah.
1.3 billion. Every community could be 200,000 people going up to 1 million people. So capacity is always a key concern. You cannot just install small filters and expect to cater to a community. So all of these factors eventually led to an evolved model. And in 2015 is when we finally got to a point where we thought that we were good to install our first water ATM. Before that, we installed several systems, but those were under the CSR model of various companies and corporations, both Indian and global. But that was not sustainable. Clearly, there was nobody around when the bills had to be paid, when the consumables had to be replaced, when there was a huge amount of maintenance costs that would trigger during the lifetime of the project. So all these things led to creating a sustainable, financially sustainable model of operating, a self-sustaining model of operating. And what the ATM seemed like the most ideal way to do it. And then I think 2015 to 17, we further had iterations. We developed a technology backbone. We started working on that. And 2017 is when we actually went out and secured the contract with the Indian Railways. That was our big telling moment, because it required a lot of expertise, capability, understanding of the ground dynamics of the challenges on ground. And by then, I think we were fairly confident that we could kind of cope with that, with the pressure of performance, with the pressure of delivering on ground, and then delivering every day thereafter. So we went out and secured contracts to install 101 systems on as many railway station platforms in Mumbai city and across Maharashtra. And that is where then the team, they got galvanized. We built a team. We started expanding very rapidly after that.
So how does that work then in terms of that sort of relationship with a state-owned enterprise of a railway station, I'm assuming in India? Is that they rent you the space and then you install the machine? And then how does the consumer consume your product? Is it through, I mean, the typical ATM, vending machines that we see out here in Asia, you're using maybe an octopus card or some sort of transactional thing. Does that exist in India, or is it, I don't know, is it free? And I don't know, how does it work?
No, it's all pay per use. So one of the fundamental tenets of this entire implementation model was water should not be free. We've always advocated and championed the cause of the fact that for water to be valued, a value must be attached to water. As long as it's free, it's going to be destroyed. As long as it's free, it's not going to be valued and regarded. And that's one of the major reasons why water is becoming a scarcer resource, not just in India, but globally, because the political establishments want to keep the cost absolutely minimal, if not free, because it's a vote bank politics. It directly affects their water is fundamental to life, as it is to the life of every citizen, and they want to be on the right side of that, but they're on the wrong side of the cause of water. And only so, I give the example of electricity. One of the reasons why the world is much better off on electricity now is because it is an expensive resource. So there are people turning off their fans, turning off their air conditioners. I mean, imagine making electricity free. The whole world is never shut down. I mean, there's going to be lights on 24/7, 365, and grids will be collapsing. So it's important to create that awareness through cost. So therefore, there is a cost that everybody is expected to pay. We install these kiosks on the railway stations through a PPP, as it is called, a public-private partnership, and where it's a concession that the railways would give us. We would go sign up for a 5+3, 5 years basic contract with an extendable by another 3 years. Install these on with our investment. So it's the BOO model, which is build, own, and operate. Through the period, the railways would charge us a fixed license fee throughout the period of the 5 years, which would be pretty much through a tender process. And we would go out and submit bids, secure those contracts, and then we would be licensed to operate there, with all operating costs being to our account. We engage individuals who act as social entrepreneurs or act as operating partners who stand and manage those kiosks. We've created hundreds of jobs through this process. That's been one of the very integral value propositions of this entire concept. So water for us, I have to say this at this juncture, water for us is not a product. It's not something as a product that we sell. Water for us is a medium. It's a medium of change. It's a medium of job creation. It's a medium to self-employment. It's a medium to eliminating single-use plastic from the environment. It's a medium to conserve more water. So treating the water efficiently is a medium to conserving water. And so many other things, education for children, economically gainful activities for women empowerment, health, wellness, stimulating economies. I don't think that the world can recover at the pace that it wishes to unless it starts making safe water available to its citizens. So there is a huge amount of overarching benefits that the medium of safe water can actually deliver. And that's what I think everybody, all the listeners must know, that it's a much wider canvas that you're painting on.
Yeah. And so we move forward now to, the current year. And it's, as we mentioned at the very beginning, very exciting to sort of be involved heavily now with the government's initiative to roll out clean, safe water to on a national scale, cross states. How has that been, first of all, just your own experience within that sphere? Because obviously India as a country is sort of split up amongst powerful states. In some ways, the power is, delegated down. Have you found any challenges dealing from state to state, or has it been quite consistent in terms of support? And can you tell us a little bit more, and then as well, about Bajaj Auto, who's pledged their support in rolling out, going from now the ATM perspective to the three-wheeler, which I see in your backdrop behind you. Maybe we can sort of dovetail into that now.
Yes, absolutely. So you said it. India is a very very diverse, very massive, very densely populated country. The challenges here are tremendous. Not only in terms of the type of challenges, but also the number of challenges. As far as the central government, the government of India is concerned, I think they're the ones who really draft the policies. And then the execution of those policies is then delegated to the states, to the respective states. So the good news is, India being a republic, everything is very unified. It's typically a pyramid as far as the governance is concerned. And then, yes, execution at the states is a bit of a challenge, because you go into different environments, the languages are different, the local geopolitical, social, cultural factors are always different from one versus the other. You could be in another part of India, and for example, I could be in another part of India where I'm as foreigner to that place as probably you would be if you came in. So because the language is different, everything is different. We don't speak that language. They don't speak our language. So, there is the saying where the three things bind India. One is the Ganges, the other is cricket, and the third is English. So English becomes the common denominator when it comes to communication. But when you work with government departments, you've got to develop that agility and that malleability to be able to work with them, relate to them, express to them that, and give them the confidence that you are capable of being able to develop a customized approach to meeting their gaps in the drinking water system, or in as far as their needs are concerned. So all of that is an ongoing process, and it requires, I dare say, a huge amount of maturity for someone to really deal with this. I keep, a lot of our investors, we have conversations, and I keep saying this, you wish I was never 26 and 28 or 30 years old, because, nothing against them. They're the ones who are moving mountains. But as far as the water activity is concerned, the water sector is concerned, I believe you require at least 20 years of hardcore experience, if not more, to be able to actually battle, engage with the beast and then prevail. It's a tough sector. There is no real precedence of big success stories in the world There are large utilities, but you will not hear of another water services company because there is none. So it's always it's a sector that has no precedence, no big success story. So for us, that was the motivation to be the proverbial Amazon of the water sector. While to most, that is the biggest challenge and hence the deterrent from actually getting into this. So,
So I was going to say, obviously you're keeping super, I mean, this is going to keep you super busy as a group in India, the Indian side anyway, for the next 3 to 5 years, I'm sure. But as we've spoken offline, as an entrepreneur yourself, you're keen to look at transposing some of what you've now created in India into other spheres, other countries, in particular South Asia and ASEAN. So what are your plans here, and how do you envisage the business model you've created sort of transferring abroad? I mean, you've talked about some of the challenges going from state to state within India. I mean, some of the countries like Malaysia, Thailand, even Philippines, they're similar in terms of they're democratic. They're supposed to be democratic. I'd say that in general they are in terms of how they govern, and they're quite state as well, but federal policy delegated down to the states for implementation. Do you see opportunities to partner, to do PPP, as you've mentioned? Where do you see then as well? Today you've achieved X. What do you want to achieve in Y over the next 3 to 5 years in parallel to this rollout in India?
Well, India remains, as you would imagine, India is our home pitch. India is where we've gained all the traction to date, and we've got tremendous traction going forward. I mean, we could actually delve into India itself and not look beyond for the next 20 years. Having said that, I think the services model that we've developed is so relevant, and it is so replicable, it's so scalable, not only within the different parts of India, but also across beyond, which is across Southeast Asia, all the ASEAN countries, the Middle East, North Africa, Africa, and we keep getting a huge amount of outreach from people who see this as a tenable option, as a sustainable option to be implemented over there. The desire, as far as we are concerned, is to Uberize the water sector, is basically create the accessibility through the three-wheeler that we've developed. This little tuk-tuk that you see behind me, it ferries water, and it doesn't, not passengers, and it ferries water in bulk, and it can actually work in a highly technology-enabled, technology-controlled, geo-fenced manner that provides complete transparency, both qualitative, quantitative, and locational, to not only the stakeholders and the operators, but also to the consumers. And that is what bridges that trust deficit, which is so largely prevalent in the water sector. People don't know what they're drinking. They're just assuming that it is safe to drink. So I'm not talking about the developed nations such as Singapore or other places where things are pretty reliable. People are pretty confident of what they're getting. But in the other developing and underdeveloped countries, trust deficit is there's a chasm. It's not just a gap. So that needs to be bridged. That is what we are trying to offer here. And we are trying to basically harness the unutilized capacities of existing water treatment plants. I think that is something that really needs to be understood. There's billions of dollars, tens and hundreds of billions of dollars worth of water infrastructure that is already erected, standing, but grossly underutilized or totally unutilized. They're not being maintained. They're absolutely not in play. And all the capital investment that went into setting them up, they're beautifully located in the middle of communities intended to cater to rural, semi-urban, and urban areas, but there is nobody operating them, and people aren't utilizing them. So how can we actually infuse a technology element of control, remote supervision, and then extend delivery through these tuk-tuks, which tank up from those water treatment plants and deliver water in a hub and spoke model within the community? I think the efficiencies is what creates viability, feasibility, profitability, and thereby sustainability. And that is what the increased efficiencies is what we are seeking. We are trying to offer this now to other SWEs, as we call them, safe water enterprises. There are a huge number of them. There are millions of plants that are going a begging right now, and that can become the platform for multi-million three-wheelers operating. And the reason why we focused on three-wheelers, not two and not four, is because these are even optimally sized. They're even it's feasible to drive them deep into communities, however dense the favelas or the clusters or the slums may be, and deliver water at the doorstep. We do this in a very environmentally friendly manner. We are using electric vehicles, and more recently we've developed the CNG variant of this, which is also a clean fuel. CNG is compressed natural gas. And to build the CNG variant, we've partnered with Bajaj Auto, which is the world's biggest three-wheeler manufacturer. They have a presence in 30 countries around the world. And for the electric vehicles, we've currently partnered with Kinetic Green, which is one of India's biggest companies in the electric vehicle space. And the good news here is we're not married to any particular specific automobile. So we continue to bear the flexibility of working with local, regional companies to build their JanaJal WOWs. It's the JanaJal WOW which is the solution. It's not tied to any OEM. So we could actually go out and work even with a Tesla, I dare say, and tomorrow build out vehicles, the JanaJal WOWs, and deliver water. As long as the model is not cannibalized, as long as the affordability is not cannibalized, we are good to work with just about anyone and everyone. And that's where we are seeking partnerships with local companies with local business groups, with local diversified corporations that can offer us all the expertise that is required to implement on the ground, starting with the language, starting with understanding of the local geopolitics, as I said, understanding the local customs, cultures, and then we can act as a technology and technical partner to basically lend them extend all the expertise and the experience of how to implement this on ground.
Very fantastic. And obviously, that last segment there is really for the institutional investors and also corporate investor types who are sort of looking at how this could be monetized in a way that is also, along the lines of that impactfulness and sustainability narrative that's coming through quite strong in a COVID recovery. So I just want to touch upon, we have the products, we have these exciting rollouts. Are you starting yet to feel the pressure as a CEO from some of these more sustainable targets that are coming out, being announced by governments? Some are more active than others. I think India is still not yet, necessarily committed to the COP26 targets yet in the UK. They're still questioning that they have the right to still develop, a bit like China, to sort of go beyond some of the deadlines, like 2050 is now 2060 in China. But yeah, can you just maybe explain a little bit for the listeners as well, in the water industry, how is waste management and the sort of recycling part coped with? It's just from your own, not necessarily JanaJal itself, but an overview of the India water industry. What are the measures being taken by government and by the utilities themselves in tackling, unnecessary waste management and unnecessary recycling, and increasing recycling, I should say, and also did the whole leak detection of, alleviating all of that water wastage?
So yeah, you've touched a very raw nerve, and that is pretty much the Achilles heel of all governments globally. Especially, we understand the Indian environment, so I can speak for this situation here. Is leak detection and NRW, as it is called, non-revenue water, are two of the biggest problems that governments are facing. And that is basically aggravated the entire deterioration in the quality of the pipelines. So, imagine one pipeline getting punctured indiscriminately at different points where water is now being leaked out or being diverted.
Yeah.
And so not only does it kill the pressure in the pipeline, so it doesn't allow the water even in the pipeline to flow beyond 300 feet, though it's intended to fly 3,000 feet, because of all the leak in even the pressure of the water, and then it's being sucked out at various points. Then there is contamination which is coming in, because that's not an organized what do you call it, an artery. That's not an organized artery, that is a disorganized artery. So somebody's just kind of punctured it, created a quick fix, fixed a hose, and is drawing water. So there's mud going in, there's soil going in all the time, there is all the contamination from the soil going in, there's a huge amount of bacteria, virus, E. coli, which is constantly going in, besides the suspended solids, turbidity. And above all, there are also sewage lines which are overlapping with the water. So all of this has become a massive problem that the governments have to really face. The other problem is the condition of the average age of pipelines globally, you must know, is 40 years. That's the average age of water pipelines globally. So imagine in those days, there were only galvanized iron pipes, or GI pipes, as we refer to them. And these GI pipes are rusted, they're corroded, and they are actually releasing lead and nickel into the water. And the perfect case in point being Flint, Michigan, back in the US, where that has become such a big situation. There was a similar situation in one of the provinces in India in December last year. So corroding pipelines is a very, very big issue, and governments are very aware of that. They believe that a decentralized distribution is the order of the day. It's important to mitigate, because replacement of these pipelines not only is very, very capital intensive, but it's also very time consuming. So if they have to really replace pipelines, it can take anywhere from 5, 7, 10, 20 to maybe never, that much of time. So how is that ever going to be done?
So when it comes to JanaJal's solution, you're bypassing all of that in some ways. You're taking from source, and then the kiosk, which you mentioned before, is doing some of its own filtration in order before the consumer consumes it. So that's another benefit in some ways, as you say, it's that sort of decentralizing. You're not necessarily relying on local infrastructure where it can fall down. So that's really important to sort of understand the opportunities there.
What's also important to understand is this can be done in 1/10 the capex required to replace those pipelines, and in 1/20th the time that would be required to actually physically replace that pipeline. So the efficiencies, if put into perspective, are so many that it's a game changer. It's an absolutely force multiplier kind of a format of making safe water available to people.
So I have to ask, and you're going to hate me for this, but in terms of the competitive landscape, I've got my backdrop about the office and home delivery, which most people run, especially in Hong Kong here, we've got Powwow Water and Watson's water suppliers who have the big plastic containers, and it goes on top of the water cooler, and they come around and you rent the machine or you buy the machine, and then you pay per canister that you acquire. So is that, obviously that must exist today in the corporate world of India, in the big centers. Are you looking to compete with that, or you're literally saying no, we're happy for them to do their thing, we're doing our thing?
Well, so the short answer to that is no. We are also addressing that market and that space, and for that we have, if you see above me over here, we've got this brand called Ohia. So Ohia is drinking water in Japanese, and this is the Ohia water stations are what cater to the corporate environments and to indoor environments, where we're again eliminating that plastic canister, that plastic jar, and we're actually plugging in the water source, and we are dispensing alkaline water to the consumers at a pittance of the cost of whatever they would be currently paying for those
So that would be more maintenance of the filters going forward.
That's right.
Yeah.
So once again, what we've done is we've customized our services model to suit a corporate environment. We've got a very good looking touchless dispensing mechanism going in on these water stations. And now we've also developed the OHIA water pods, which are for homes, where people can actually even give voice commands and have water dispensed for themselves. So there is now that's the home to work, a complete home to work coverage. So JanaJal is the community caters to communities, while the JanaJal WOW provides the mobility and distribution of the safe water, while the OHIA caters to indoor environments where be it schools, offices, colleges, universities, hospitals, and whatever they may be, malls.
So before I let you go, I want to just touch upon all of those diverse products and solutions. What's the technology behind in terms of pulling all of the data from this together? Do you have a centralized data system that's collecting, whether it's real time or staggered time? Because obviously for the ATMs, you would probably want to be notified when it's running low, or it has to be maintained or updated. Similarly, in the corporate environment, whether the customer informs you, or is there an app these days? Is it going towards an app detection system? What's the technology that you're seeing or looking to do? Maybe you're in the process of upgrading and even increasing your digital footprint.
No, thank you for asking, and that's a very, and that's the core of whatever that's at the core of whatever we're doing. So basically, what we've done is we've developed a proprietary technology platform which we call the JJ Suite, the JanaJal Suite, and this is we further developed proprietary controllers, IoT-enabled controllers and sensors that actually are installed in every system, whether it's an outdoor system, it's an indoor system, it's the WOW, and all of this generates data and sends it to the unified technology platform in the real time. So there is GPRS or Wi-Fi connectivity through which the data is received in the real time, it's processed in the real time, and there is an agile system that is constantly, proactively throwing up the next set of guidance that should be given in terms of how every system should be managed. So we constantly know how much water is being filled into the WOW, how much is being dispensed, what are the revenues being collected, what is the quality of water, the tolerance levels, when are membranes due for replacement, when are filters due for replacement. So it basically allows for preemptive maintenance routines, and we don't have to wait for the water to turn foul before we actually go in there and try and correct the situation. We don't have to wait for a system to go down before we go and get it up again. So we've actually got all the intelligence coming in on the back end, and we know exactly what is the life of a particular system. And again, mind you, the life of a particular membrane can vary depending on the quality of the raw water that it is treating. So very bad water can actually reduce the life of the membrane, and not so bad water can extend the life of the membrane. So basically, it's also about, that's where we manage costs, because we're able to optimize utilization of every membrane versus simply say every 3 months you must go out and replace the membranes mindlessly. Because for all you know, you could have actually used that membrane for 7 months. And for all you know, you should have replaced that membrane 1 month ago. So that 3-month schedule that is mindlessly been built can actually be a self-goal as far as the operations are concerned. So it's a lot of method to the madness that exists, and all of that is driven by technology. In fact, we use AI, we use AR, we use ML, machine learning, all this data. So every machine has its own learning curve. It has its own operating life cycle. It has its own operating dynamics. And all of that is also understood. We are also now using blockchain, and we are now implementing blockchain and encouraging and what we call the zero leakage CSR model. So if you as Mike Walsh would like to give people $100 worth of safe water, Today, typically, you would have to sign a check in favor of an NGO or some charitable foundation that goes out and delivers water. But here, what you can do is you can actually get onto the back end, the dashboard of of JanaJal, the JJ suite, and you can actually drop $100 into your treasure chest, into your wallet. And from there, you can decide that you want, let's say you're getting 10 liters of water for every dollar. So for $100, you'll be getting 1,000 liters. You will know how your 1,000 liters is being dispensed through the JanaJal network of systems. You will know the names and the mobile numbers and the email addresses of the end beneficiaries. You will know who has taken how much water, when. The date time stamp is all available to you. It's a very transparent system with no human intervention. So imagine giving $100 and getting that 1,000 liters of water out on the ground. That is the zero.
That is model. Really a game changer, because in some ways that was leading to my next question, because bring you back to your stock market experience back in the day. Obviously now we've done a few sessions already at PBEC on ESG reporting for public corporations, and more stock markets are making it compulsory for corporations to have an annual ESG report. And when we talk about ESG, we're talking about the environmental, social governance element. And this includes what companies are physically doing, not just talk. They have to walk the talk, as it were, and actually making contributions either through their, reducing their carbon footprint and climate effect in their own operations, or in some offset programs where they're contributing to designated projects. And what you're saying to me, maybe we're not quite there yet, but JanaJal Suite potentially could become a viable project for some of these corporations to be investing some of their offset requirements, if you like, for their own operational carbon footprint reduction. And that's quite exciting, because then it really does bring the whole sort of what we call supply chain of this, going from a water utility sector to that whole charitable element that you've just discussed, that you want to be doing something, you want to know where your money's going. And now you're cutting out, again, the middleman. And I don't want to belittle NGOs. We're an NGO ourselves and a think tank, but right. We're not involved, particularly in distribution of resources or financial aid. However, it just, again, it becomes the lowest denominator of cost from production all the way to the end user, with the blockchain actually transparency in the middle. And from my own brief knowledge on all of this, there seems to be a lack of viable projects out there anyway. People are willing to put their money where their mouth is, but there's not enough viable projects in order to be qualified for these carbon offset programs. So I'm interested to hear, is that something you see, some of the offering that you're doing that could fall into that, or is it purely going to be a commercial play?
No, we absolutely see ourselves being the ESG partner, the ESG execution partner for companies, for corporations.
Wonderful.
In fact, one of the things we are doing is that for every project that we execute, we will get a third-party social impact assessment report prepared and submit to them. They would know that for every dollar they've actually put into this particular activity, they've actually got an ROI, an ESG ROI of, let's say, $6 for every dollar that they've put in. And that will be quantified on the basis of certain KPIs, which will be identified. And I can share one of the reports that we recently did on ourselves as a company as to date, what is the kind of impact assessment. We wanted to quantify that. And we were, absolutely delighted to know, and we didn't know that, in all honesty, because we're like the woodpecker, right? We're just going out and doing our little thing. We don't know what is actually being created. So we had them look at us and review us and do a full 3-month audit on us. And lo and behold, as of October last year, we were told that with whatever investments have gone in, and with all the efforts and the projects that we've done on ground in the last 7 years, we've actually created value worth $1.1 billion, which is phenomenal from the investor perspective. So, because the investors are here, not with the, of course, everybody wants to make profits, but, the planet, the purpose, the people are as important as the profit for them. And just for them to know that the impact is happening on ground, that is coming home, that that satisfies them no end. And imagine the same corporations knowing that their dollar is also creating this kind of impact, and we are not going to be creating this report. It's going to be done by a third party, which is a professional agency that does it. So the point I'm making here is there are so many ways to really get complete value. And like you rightly said, no discredit to NGOs. They've done phenomenal work. They continue to do phenomenal work. But I think it's important to have horses for courses. It's important to have the water experts go out and implement something in the water sector versus have a carpenter doing the plumbing, if you know what I mean.
I
so
agree.
Not everyone bears so they've got the platform, they've got the organization, but they may not possess the expertise required to implement something on ground with the efficiencies that can actually deliver impact. And that is where we are actually happy to also partner with NGOs. So we're not just saying that corporations should come to us and work with us directly. They're absolutely welcome to do so. But even the NGOs and the philanthropic organizations, the charitable foundations, are absolutely, we welcome any such conversations with them, and they can actually lead the fundraise or attracting the spending on ESG, while we can partner with them as the executing partner.
Yeah. Well, you kind of answered what we typically ask as our last question, which is what, in a synopsis world, is the value proposition of JanaJal? And I think you've answered that in spades in the last few minutes, in particular dollar amounts of $1.1 million contribution just by doing a self-assessment. So I think it's wonderful to have had the opportunity for you to come on the show today and share your story. I think it's the start of something, you say it's a long journey, but I think sometimes timing is also, and a bit of luck is always involved in everything that we do, typically, regardless of sectors. And I think you're in the right space from your own experience. You've done the due diligence and the time required that people expect. And we all wish you the very best of luck from PBEC and our full support. And we're looking forward to hopefully opening some doors further east, as we feel that this is a wonderful partnership and product that can be emulated in more regions with the right partners. So with that, I'll let you go, Dr. Parag, and just thank you so much again for joining us all the way from Dubai, and hope to speak to you very soon. Take care.
Thank you, Mike. Such a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your time.